Hello, everyone, and welcome to Toku Portal Podcast. I'm Ryan. With me is
Did it again.
welcome to Kamen Rider Zi-O, episode 46. Zero should be joining us at some point. We tried waiting for him, but we don't know where he is. So we're gonna get started and go through like the beginning stuff, and hope Zero joins in for the really good stuff that comes later. Uh, so picking up right where we left off, Schwartz nabbed Gaze to create another impossible world, and the writer brought back this time was White Waz. And then Schwartz goes to attack Tsukuyomi because she's not in the future he envisions, but Waz comes in and saves her. And as he's doing it, he says, according to this book, then he pulls her out of there, and then he, jumps into his usual opening narration. And we are getting closer and closer to him just straight up doing it in front of everyone.
Yeah, they've been getting kind of creative with those recently. But yeah, I was not expecting to see White Waz again. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, especially with the direction they take him in this episode. But yeah, Waz's narration, I'm hoping they go for it. Last episode, Waz does the narration right in front of everyone. Wouldn't that be great? Hey, Zero.
Hello. Yeah, I'm just setting up the YouTube.
Actually, we just started.
Oh, my God. Alright.
We weren't sure when you were going to be here, so... yeah, we literally just went over the beginning where I was saying how Waz is getting closer and closer to doing the narration in front of everyone, and I'm hoping he does it in the last episode.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. I mean, yeah, either that or it reveals that he's talking to a group. It's just him telling a story, but it'll be interesting which way he takes.
Someone suggested, oh, what if he's telling Sogo's uncle about everything?
Oh, that'd be pretty interesting.
Actually, Zero, could you take a moment to just check the audio real quick to make sure it's going through okay?
Alright, one.
Decade, if you just speak real quick so that he has something to hear.
Okay, testing.
Alright. Sorry, folks, just want to make sure the audio is going through tonight. Made that mistake before. And we just kind of get a cutaway from the battle back to the clock shop where Sogo and Waz are talking things over the situation about how Gaze is trapped in another world.
Yeah, audio's coming in. Okay.
Okay. So, Gaze is trapped in another world, and they can't really rely on Decade or Diane to help bust them out. But also, Decade said, hey, the world needs to be destroyed to save these people anyways. So, Sogo and Waz are at a bit of a loss as to what to do. And Tsukuyomi kind of blames herself for falling into Schwartz's trap. Any thoughts?
Not really, just a lot of dialogue. But, I mean, it is interesting seeing their interactions. with all the crazy stuff, like just taking a break and talking it out.
Was apparently has warm
Yeah.
hands.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I'm like, well, that's the only thing I know there. Um, yeah, it's a lot of plot dump. Like, a lot of shit happens in this episode, but it's mostly like this happened and that happened and that happened, so it's kind of hard to say anything. As opposed to, I mean, like maybe you could talk about the plan, but that includes like half the episode, you know?
You know what? Let's do that, alright? They go to White Waz for help, and he pitches them an idea because in the end, like, he's not under Schwartz's control. He was just revived by Schwartz. So he also wants to save Gaze. So he devises a pretty complicated plan here. That involves them faking a fight with each other, and, you know, he uses his book to get Internal thrown into the mix. Wherein Waz does defeat White Waz, which, you know, is according to the plan, but was going to happen anyways because Ginga finally. Schwartz shows up and revives White Waz again. They throw Waz into another world, or something like that. The same one that Gaze is in. And then Sogo, like, takes on a rider kick from Eternal, his maximum drive from the movie. And while he's, like, holding it, he activates his Trinity form to absorb Gaze and Waz into himself, and he gets pulled into the another world, where he lets go of Eternal's rider kick, so Eternal just rider kicks the another world that they're in and fucking destroys it, because that's how strong he is.
Yeah, watching Eternal kick ass this episode was pretty great. But I really liked Gaze's Another World, because he basically finally says how he's feeling, but it's also kind of sad because I think he's still gonna have to leave Sogo's timeline. We'll see, but it was good.
Yep, I agree. I guess so. Like, Eternal is the destroyer of worlds because Decade got his powers taken away. So that's cool. Like, it kind of made sense because they're like, well, if I put both of the guys needed for Trinity in another place, and Trinity form usually draws these three idiots together, it's more likely to just port Sogo into the right place. So that kind of worked out. I mean, it doesn't make sense how, like, Eternal could break multiple another worlds. But I'm like, fuck it. At this point, they pretty much gave up, and they're like, all right, this solves the problem. It doesn't solve all the problems because then like more another riders show up.
Yeah, so that's the confusing part. Is that why did it destroy some of the Netherworlds and not all of them? Are they all like sitting next to each other, and that's just how big the blast radius was?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I mean, like, the real reason is because the show likes to fucking cop out and just give simple solutions to complex problems. But like, yeah, I guess if you really wanted to do it, it's like, Schwartz was smart enough not to put them all close together, so if something happened, he would still have some of them left.
And yeah, I do really like Gaze's Impossible World. It's like, the thing he failed to do was tell Sogo how he feels. And instead, all he managed to do was try and push Sogo away, rather than admit that he wants to stay in his time and keep being his friend.
Yeah, I also liked how they threw in the Kamen Rider Double fighting background music. This, I was not expecting this to be like the double episode, but it kind of was snuck in behind everything, so that was pretty cool.
I also love. Oh, go on. Zero.
No, it's okay. I mean, like, yeah, like we were not expecting a double episode, and then like the preview is like, what? We're getting another Drive episode, or something. So I guess they're just sneaking in like the last couple tributes. Also, I kind of love how like after all the shit's done, you see Eternal fading away, and he's finally happy. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much in character.
His true goal all along is to die. And I do also love the detail in Gaze's impossible world. Sogo's like glitched out, emotionless face. Because Gaze doesn't know how Sogo will react to him telling him this. He has no idea what would happen. Which is why he couldn't bring himself to say it in the first place. So even in his perfect world, like, he can't finish the conversation because Sogo has no reaction to it.
I mean, that's nice and poetic and all that, but like, I think it's just because the way that the Another World loops work is they're like very limited in time. But you know what? Yours also kind of makes sense.
Like, yeah, they loop once the person is at their happiest, and then they reset so that person can go through that same joy. But Gaze doesn't reach that same point that we saw, say, the video game player did, where like he wins and then the entire audience is like cheering for him as he like celebrates. Like, Gaze doesn't have that satisfaction of Sogo like responding to him. All he can manage is to just say how he feels. So Eternal is like happy to die again. He's not mad about being used. White Waz is happy to die again because, hey, he's happy to have saved his savior. Which makes Gaze start to see him in a different light at that point. Like, hey, maybe this guy wasn't so bad after all.
Yeah, while I was watching that, I'm like, that's a great moment. And then I was like, God damn, this is like, you know, Evolt and all that bullshit that we pulled of trying to make Evolt a good guy.
Yeah.
And how it didn't fit at all. This is like the exact opposite. It's like barely anything, but like it matches perfectly.
Right. Because White Waz was pretty much an anti-hero all along, but now we can respect him for it. Yeah. So, some fights start happening, but the big thing is Sogo and Schwartz. And Schwartz reveals to Sogo that, hey, I was the one who told you to become king when you nearly died as a child. I'm honestly surprised no one has told Sogo this in the 2 months since, like, Tsukuyomi learned it.
Well, Tsukuyomi never learned that like Schwartz went back and messed with. Well, actually, that's not true because she saw Schwartz was controlling
like,
the kids.
Regardless of how much time travel was involved, she saw Schwartz, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. You're right. when like Schwartz takes the kids to the future. Right. Yeah. So you're right. It doesn't fucking make sense.
Right, she did see Schwartz because she tried shooting him.
I think the biggest thing that doesn't make sense for me is one of the Dark Riders, the one from True Ending, wasn't really a Dark Rider, and he actually got a happy ending.
No, but he was still a villain in the movie.
Yeah.
Until he got easily mopped by, like, all of the heroes.
He wasn't that dark.
He wasn't that capable of being a rider. So during Schwartz's big speech where he has Sogo frozen in time, Aura steps in and is listening in when Schwartz reveals that like he's been building Sogo up with all this power so that he could take it for himself and he could be the king. And then Aura is like, yeah, okay, that's what I wanted to hear. Tries freezing Schwartz and stabbing him the way she stabbed basically, she betrayed to get close to Schwartz to try and do this, but he was ready for it and just kicks her away, basically. No thoughts? I mean, I thought that, like, seeing Aura's, like, real plan here that to try and stop Schwartz in the end was, you know, pretty good, even if it wasn't the most well thought out. So, I can at least understand why she killed her, even if it was a stupid move.
Psychologically, it makes sense, but it's really dumb. She was just not a very well written character, unfortunately.
Yeah, least character development of all the Time Jackers. And that's saying something.
Right? That's what I was getting at. It's like, oh no. The horror. Least developed. I'm like, compared to what? Compared to this fucking wallpaper of villains over. I mean, like, the best one died. Right?
Right.
And I have a feeling the only reason he got development is because they were gonna kill him off. Which fucking sucks.
And don't forget Tid, the one who was actually getting shit done.
Who? Sorry, what?
Tid, the Time Jacker from the final, like, Heisei movie.
Yeah, that's what I fucking thought. I'm like, oh right, that guy.
Right, another Kuga. He was actually getting shit done.
Right. Yeah, he was too important. Yeah, man. Fuck's sakes. Like, I love how we're like, oh, Schwartz's plan finally revealed. I'm like, what? Why are we dragging this out? There's like nothing here.
Alright. That's kind of like what Gaze, Was, and Tsukiyomi are all asking each other after dealing with the Dark Riders. Like, man, what has Schwartz been after this whole time? And they kind of take a look at his actions that haven't really made sense before and realize, like, wait, what if it's all just been to get after Sogo? What if Sogo was the real target behind all of it? Meanwhile, Sogo and Schwartz are actually fighting this time, and the dialogue interaction between them is really great about what it means to be a king and what power is for.
Yeah, that was pretty good shit. The biggest problem, well, not the biggest problem. It's just like, it's nice that Sogo's like delivering the speech and shit, but I'm one, Schwartz doesn't give a shit, and two, like, it's all leading up to the whole thing of like, well, you got three paths to walk, right? You can do your thing, you can do my thing, or you can go Amazio. and it's like, okay, there was like one cool speech and then like one very interesting dilemma. It doesn't kind of link how we got here, but here we are, right? Like that's the whole problem of this show. It's like, right, there's the whole become king thing, and then there's the whole Omazio thing, and the show really hasn't done a good job of connecting those points. But it's like, fuck it, let's
Well,
just throw them in because final out.
Schwartz doesn't care for Sogo's opinion.
Yeah, I guess he does when he knows he could win.
Huh. But yeah, the three paths, because, like, hey, if you create your ideal world, something bad will happen to Tsukiyomi because she's from a different timeline. I guess she and Schwartz are not Amazio's grandkids. Let's just throw that out the window. Like,
Yeah, that's
I thought I was onto something there. I thought, like, they were setting up some really cool, like, self-fulfilling prophecy shit. But no.
Yeah, that would have been cool. But what they ended up doing is like they just pulled a Ryuki where it's like, well, you can win, but Yui will die, right? So I'm like, that's I guess at least a good like backup. But it's like Schwartz didn't have that as a backup plan. I mean, like it's good that he's smart enough to use that as a ploy. And it's good that Aqua calls him out on that bullshit. But like that wasn't the plan. It's see that's the thing. Like Schwartz, okay, I'll give him this. Schwartz is good at like making like adjusting his plans and being smart enough to see people's plays coming. It's just like this whole show feels like it should be built up to Schwartz's big plan, and I feel like he has.
Well, I have a question for you related to exactly that. But before I ask that question, let's finish the last note for the episode, which is Aqua joining in the fight to try and save Sogo and getting killed. Which, as soon as he showed up and he tried rider kicking Schwartz, I just knew. It's like, this is the red flag. He's going to die. And unfortunately, that's exactly what happened.
I mean, is he dead or is he just injured? It feels like he's dead, but this show could cop out and be like, oh no, he was just really injured, and Sogo just got angry.
Decade, what do you
But
think?
also, like, yeah,
He's dead. Like, that rider kick was so powerful that it knocked Grand Zi-O on his ass, and he was standing like a couple feet away. So,
Right.
and then he had like a huge burn mark on his chest. So yeah, he's dead. Sad face.
Laser all over again.
yeah, right. So that's what I think happened. My thing is like, okay, you killed another rider, not just some rando, like an actual rider in your show. Therefore, there's no way in fucking hell this ending can last. They're not gonna be like, oh right, this is the show that Aqua died, right? Like, there's no way.
The future is
fucking,
changing.
Unless you're doing some Kirya levels of shit, and Kirya came back, right? Like, unless you're doing some insane. I mean, like, I get it that like Soga's motivated now, but I'm like, this ain't no X8 Christmas episode, right? Like, I don't feel the weight. Like, yeah, it's sad that Aqua got rocked, but I feel like this is gonna be reset. I mean, I know it's a time travel show, so of course.
I feel like it was appropriate because this episode, like, I was hitting the point where I'm wondering, like, is Aqua just gonna be here to the end now? Because at this point, it does not make sense for Aqua to just leave the show like any of the other guest writers have done, where they go their own way and leave the fighting to the new generation, Sogo and Gaze. Aqua's like, no, he's here because of all the time travel shit happening, and he wants to stop it. So, having him, like, basically die this episode kind of answered my question of, like, what are they going to do with him? Is he really just going to be here to the end?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. Like, I feel like that should have had a little more impact. I mean, like, how did it? Okay, here's the thing. Died,
Yeah?
and that had a huge impact in the show.
Yeah,
We
we
just
liked him.
fucking killed another writer. Yeah, except we just killed another writer. That should have way more impact, right? So
Right.
yeah, you're right. It does write him out of the show, which is the same thing as Decade, where it's like, well, Decade's here and it's cool. Is he gonna be all the way to the end? It's like, well, that doesn't make sense for a writer show to have like. I mean, it would have been cool and interesting, but like it doesn't make sense. You know, that's not how writer shows go. So it makes sense that Aqua got written out. It's just like fucking having him get murdered. Like that's a weird way of writing out a character. Like unless you're gonna reset this, that's like that seems extreme.
Well, the good news is that because he's a future rider, they can include him in future crossovers and just justify it as this is him before he died.
Oh god, we're just gonna do the Black and RX shit.
Is
Of
that
like, why are there two of you here?
Oh.
It's like you're the same person. Why is there two of you?
Because I'm two
Right,
riders,
like,
get over it.
Yeah, get over. At this point, like, are there more like shit? Like Black has like what, like 50 or 40 something episodes. Like, has there been enough crossovers that like there's maybe the same amount of shit as the episodes? Like, there's like 40, 50 episodes, right? I feel like Black has been in at least like 40, 50 crossovers, I think, or somewhere around that point. At least like fucking 30 or something. So I'm like, you're kind of hitting that point where it's like you have crossed over more with your future self than your original show had episodes, almost. You know, it's kind of getting insane.
Alright, so, my question for you. It goes off of Schwartz's plan, because throughout the series we've been kind of saying, like, the Time Jackers aren't getting any development, they don't feel like a threat, I feel like Schwartz should be getting close to his plan, but it doesn't feel like he's gone anywhere. And now we know that, like, his plan the whole time was that he was feeding Sogo basically the Nether Riders to build him up to collecting all the ride watches and getting the power of Grand Zi-O. Or Mazio, whichever power that Sogo basically got, so that he could steal it for himself. So, like, all the whole time we were, like, feeling like there's no point to this, what's going on? And now we know, like, alright, this was the point all along, this is what was happening. Retroactively, does that make all that build-up better?
Hell no. Straight up no. Like, this ain't no White Wizard shit. Like, that was entertaining and interesting. This is like, well, we've hit the end, therefore it must have been all the villain's plan because it worked out. Like, come on, man. Like, yeah, I know we could have all seen this plotline coming, but it's fucking...
We suggested it a couple
right?
of times,
like,
but we were like, nah, it's gotta be something else.
Right. And the thing is, like, yeah, this is the most obvious plotline. It's not satisfying at all. Like, when the Wise Wizard shit happen, you're like, oh, god damn. Like, that adds to the show. Whereas this happening is like, yeah, of course. Because you couldn't think of anything else to do. Like, you couldn't think of a better plan. This whole shit of like, oh no, he's just powering it up. I'm like, why? Was there ever a time that Schwartz didn't try to murder his... You know? Or, I mean, like, yeah, he backed off, but it was more like he was bored instead of, like, actually giving Sogo a hand. Like, if you're gonna do this, fucking show some hints. At least Wise Wizard had hints where he's like, alright, I'm not trying to fully murder you, so I'm gonna tell the monsters to back off now. Right? Or, like, give you a power-up to beat one of my monsters. Right? Because I'm getting into a place where I want you to be. Whereas, like, Schwartz is like, he's nothing. He just shows up at the end and says, yes, everything according to my plan. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess your plan was Grand Zio, but nothing else before that made any goddamn sense. Also, he wouldn't even have gotten Grand Zio had Omazio not shown up and been like, yes, go collect 6.
So, Decade, what do you think?
I agree. Even if this reveal, quote unquote, wasn't super entertaining, they could have at least made the earlier episodes better and, yeah, dropped some hints. And then this would have felt like some sort of payoff. Not great, but
Okay.
it's still no excuse for, I'm gonna be king, yay, collect all the toys.
Okay, so I don't feel so bad for feeling like this series wasted some time very early on. Alright, so I have 2 more questions. Oh, go on, Zero? No, okay.
Yeah, I was pretty much gonna say, like, yeah, it did seem like they did waste a lot of time, especially, like, here's the thing, like, they could have done the thing of, like, oh, Schwartz is not fully trying to kill Zio. Had we gotten, like, okay, fine, you don't want to give Schwartz backing off with the monster attack, but, like, you could have had the time actors interacted with each other more, and you saw like Schwartz making some weird moves, whereas like the others are just calling him to finish Zio off or something, and he's like, "No, I'm doing shit, everything according to my plan" or something. Like once or twice, at least we would have known like, oh, like there's more shit going on. Whereas like, yeah, we all kind of knew that, but that's because we've seen writer shows. We know how the plot's gonna go. It's not that like the villain is interesting or we interpreted what the character wants to do. It's we're just so aware of how writer plots, And if a show has to have you aware of its fucking gimmicks and cliches to work, that's not a good way of writing.
Speaking of recycled plots, 1 year ago we were having a similar conversation with a different villain. And I want to go back to that comparison that we've made before. So I have 2 questions, and they are different questions that may sound the same at first. Is Schwartz's plan whose plan do you think more sense? Schwartz versus Evolt, and between the two of them, who do you think made the better villain?
I think if you look at it from like the movies and the specials, Evolt's plan kind of no, I think Schwartz's plan makes more sense because it's simpler. Evolt's plan, like, you have to watch all the freaking flashbacks, the movies. It's kind of like a pain in the ass to piece it all together. So I think Schwartz's plan makes more sense, but I would say Evil's a better villain.
Right, so here's the problem. I agree with like Decade, where it's like Schwartz's plan makes more sense because it's straightforward. That's Evol's problem, is like his plan is like way too convoluted. Whereas he always pretends like, everything according to my plan. I'm like, you couldn't have planned any of that shit. Like half of it was like, I can kind of give some improv room, but like the amount of crap you pulled, like, no.
Right. How many times did we go? Why did Evil change his plan?
Right, exactly. And then the other thing is like, okay, Evolta is like 2 characters, whereas Schwartz is 1, right? And he's boring. Whereas like Evolt was like Stark and Evolt, whereas like Evolt's kind of boring. I mean, he's fun a little bit, but like Stark is great, right? And like he was freaking great to watch in the beginning of Build, whereas like Schwartz has been fucking boring throughout the show. Like there's a little bit of hints where we're like, all right, you're not as boring as you seem, but that doesn't mean you're interesting.
So, So yeah, Evil definitely had the higher charisma and was constantly interacting with Sento and like taunting him and like edging him onward, whereas Schwartz has just basically been standing behind the curtain and throwing things out at Sogo from behind that curtain, and we haven't really gotten any interaction between the two of them until now. So do you think Schwartz would have been a better villain had he confronted Sogo head on more and like actually like tried taunting him and such?
No, I mean, it's not that like I don't want Schwartz to become evil. It's just Schwartz needs to like we need to foresee that he's actually working towards his plan, right? Where it's like, oh, shit's happening and he's like adjusting his plan or he's backing off when he should be able to just finish the riders off and stuff. Whereas like so I don't want him to just show up there and taunt because like that does nothing. You just kind of turn into another Evolve. Like I want to see Schwartz actually look like he's planning shit and carrying out a plan and like adjusting it and like you know taking out characters or making sure certain characters live so his plan can work. Whereas, like, in the show, it doesn't feel like that. In the show, it just feels like he's just throwing Monster of the Week at Zi-O, trying to take him out. And, like, sometimes he does it okay, sometimes he just doesn't give a shit, and he's like, well, I'm here for a paycheck. So here you go. Right? Anyway, thoughts, Decade?
We still don't really have a motive. Like, okay, we got the backstory. His family has weird time powers. Okay, great. Now he's evil. But why? What set him off to try to make this plan in the first place? Like, it's just he's just going with the flow. We don't know anything. Still, 46 episodes. Like, even with Kronos, like, we know his wife died from the Buckster virus. He used to be president, but went to jail because of Dan. And then he went crazy. We don't have any of that with Schwartz.
Evil was like built up to be like a psychopath, a sadistic psychopath, and like he got pleasure out of destroying worlds and bringing races to extinction. So like he didn't really need a backstory because he was just chaos incarnate. But what is Schwartz?
Right, and that's the other problem where it's like Evolve you can kind of let slide the sloppy plan because his is like, well, I don't care, I'm a world destroying life form. Like if it takes me 10 years or 100, I'll get there eventually. Like he's a bioweapon, he doesn't give a shit. Whereas Schwartz, for his whole thing of like, oh yes, everything according to my plan shit, he would have to be sane. But it's like, what sane person thinks of this crazy plan? Right? Like, what set you off on this path? So that's kind of important. We've never seen it, even though we've seen his, like, younger self.
Like, he doesn't have that white wizard motivation of, the most important thing to me was taken away and I need it back. Like, he doesn't have the, doctor from O's, like, that whole, this world is meaningless and deserves to end. Like, he doesn't have all that. He just has, I'm a spoiled rich kid that got told no.
Yep. And it's pretty unsatisfactory, especially considering he's supposed to be like this great villain of like the last Heisei Rider show. You know, it's kind of lackluster.
Alright. Any final thoughts on this episode? I enjoyed it. It was a great episode.
yeah, it was pretty fun and sad, but at least some people got kind of happy endings. I'm looking forward to next week for sure.
Yeah, I mean, as nonsense as Evolved's shit is, it was still well acted, well directed. It's just like the writing's kind of letting the show down, but otherwise, like everybody else is doing their part, and so it's coming up to be like a decent episode. I want to see how the fuck they roll in like the stuff next episode. To be honest, like last episode was decent. Next episode seems interesting. This episode was kind of just there. Kind of sucks because it had some important moments.
Alright. Thanks for joining us tonight, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow for Power Rangers Beast Morphers, and then Tuesday for more Ryu Soldier. Zi-O has 3 more episodes. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next time.
Alright, thanks for listening, everyone. We'll catch you.
See you next time.